Jacob, very good to have you on here, sir. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here, man.
Stepping way back here, is there some bands or artists that really impacted you early on in your music?
Uh, in relation to what I currently do, it's a little bit more complicated, but um, I was really fortunate to have a music mentor from early on, a guy named Hal Wilner, who was a music producer and sort of an encyclopedia of the unusual. He was his day job was as the needle drop guy for SNL from the beginning, but
Wow.
he did Lou Reed records, Marianne Faithfull's records, all the Beat Poet records that came out in the like 80s and 90s, all the stuff with the music behind it. That's all Hal's genius, and so he really gave me a lot of direction when I was fairly young. He did a series because he's kind of the godfather of the tribute record. He didn't like that title. He considered it more like a concept thing of like, we're going to do a bunch of Disney songs, but like I'm getting Tom Waits, Sinead O'Connor, and NRBQ and Sun Ra to come in and do Pink Elephants. Like it was really far out stuff. It's very cool. So that was sort of the headspace that I was in. But what really caught my attention when I was younger was early American folk music and
Mm.
punk. Those are the two things for me because I think they're both very much music that's aimed directly at the heart. Great singer we toured with last year, Monica Martin, described it to me as there's music for music can hit you in the head, the heart, the hips, and the feet.
Wow, that's a good way to put it.
I love that. I just think that speaks to because and music only has to hit you in one of those spots and it can do well, but if it does multiple, then it's really operating on different levels. And you think about something like Motown that kind of does it all. It's got the songwriting and complexity and the Smokey Robinson of it all, the head, and then the heart is so obviously there. And it makes you want to dance and it makes you, well, it makes you want to fuck. And so it hits all four of them. And so I think with punk music, it's kind of like why punks retire into country music.
Yeah, yeah, you see
Reason,
that a lot. Yeah.
is it's sort of yeah, it's a natural progression of I'm looking for something that's going to go directly to the heart.
Hmm.
Um, and it doesn't have to be too heady, but it can be. Um, and so yeah, so I was obsessed with 20s and 30s folk and blues. And that's actually how I met Zach Sokolow, the guitar player in the Americans.
Ah,
Was There's a guitar shop in Santa Monica called McCabe's, and I walked in and he was playing a Blind Blake tune that I was trying to learn and playing it better than me. So I hated him for like a month.
yeah. No,
Then
that's warranted. Yeah.
yeah. And then I got over that, and I asked him to join my cowpunk band, which was called the Doppelgang, and we were the cool outsider band in junior year of high school, um, and we just wanted to be the gun club. That was sort of the vibe. Which of
And it's
course, yeah, like take old blues, you take LA, and you take punk, and that's what you get.
right, and that's a prestigious award, of course. Junior year of high school, that's big, big stuff.
Yeah, the peak of my career as far as everything's been downhill from there.
Right.
When you've been to the top of the mountain,
It's lonely, and there's only one way back down. Yeah.
yeah, but you gotta find new peaks to
Right.
climb.
Um, so are you still looking for these aspects within music today? Are you still finding new things that touch you in that way that Motown did or that punk did early on?
Uh, that's a good question. I think that especially with the Motown stuff right now, because there's sort of this renaissance of soul music. We just actually were out on the road with these Sacred Souls for a month in
Oh, they're
Europe,
fantastic. Yeah.
and they're just amazing. Soul is another one of those musics that really, like I was saying, like really hits you at the heart. I think one of the best shows I ever saw in my life was Sharon Jones. Uh, Actually, two best shows I can tell you like that were just electrifying. Lorca talks about the duende, right? This idea of like the coming out of flamenco, that bursting moment of electricity, that it factor thing. And I think that soul music really can capture that. I kind of think about different types of music as uh, almost being vehicles just for those moments. I cut my teeth playing rockabilly with Zach back in the day, and with all this, these are my hot takes. Here they come. But with all love and respect to rockabilly, it's a stupid genre with stupid lyrics, and it's a stupid music. But in spite of that, it's fantastic. Uh, like I still have a pompadour to this day. Like I learned how to play slap bass for it and the whole thing. But the reason why I say that is that it's all functioning towards having a guitar player who can like and have dialogue in the duende. He can reach that moment of electricity. You can have a performer who just has it, and it's a real vehicle for that. I feel like soul music is sort of a elevated version of that, if you will. Like as you think about you you get Otis Redding, screaming on the mic, and you're just it's chilling. And so, same thing with Sharon Jones, same thing getting to see Joshy every night, uh, making everybody feel like they want to get pregnant, men included at the shows. Um,
What do
it's a
you
real treat. Yeah.
yeah. What do you make of this whole this soul revival that we're seeing now? Do you think that it was inevitable that there would be multiple bands at the same point kind of making these songs again, kind of tapping back into this feeling that was around in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and we're seeing it again?
I think that a want for something so engaging. Um, there's a terrific interview with Iggy Pop where he's sitting there missing a tooth, and he starts talking about like Dionysian versus Apollonian art. It's a really great, highbrow, lowbrow combination, and he's just talking about how the Stooges are Dionysian, and it's this live performance thing. And I think that that mixed with I think that's what is uh, alluring to a lot of this music. Like I was saying, because it is so driven towards these live performances, these moments that are sparks. Um, the immense interest in the soul thing is, I mean, the aesthetic is, for my taste, very cool. The music is really pleasant. I think we're all looking for a little bit, at least in the last like let's say 20 years of not to get into politics too much, but it's been a rocky road. Um, and so I think finding something, I don't think anybody's ever going back to Jackie Gleason necessarily. We're not going to put on music to change your mind. I mean, I might, but yeah, I think that soul stuff like that, it's engaging and it's also a little bit relaxing in a way. Or when
Yeah,
it's not, it's exciting in that way that passionate music is. Yeah. I
that
mean,
is.
and we're sort of proxy to that with LOM because I kind of think of this like the comeback thing is like music you'd play in your lowrider, you know?
Yeah.
And we're sort of on the we're on we're on that playlist.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. And a fantastic playlist to be a part of. And it seems like every couple of months there's a new artist showing what they think of the genre, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's been great to be a kind of I've been in because of my background in folk music and country and blues and all that stuff. I've always been around people interested in older musics and stuff like that, and the conversations of like how much do you interpret it and how much do you like how much do you blow the dust off the record versus how much do you throw the record on the ground? Um,
Ooh, yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. What's your standing point on that?
I fluctuate constantly.
Okay.
I think the most important thing is to be creating. And I think about a guy like JD McPherson, who I think does a really excellent job of kind of picking up the torch where it was left behind. You know, and when you get to really hear someone genuinely creating new ideas within a genre as opposed to just aping them, um, which can be a lot of fun too. Uh, like that is really exciting. And I think especially in this moment right now, you have like, you know, Aaron Frazier doing all that great work, pushing forward, and same thing with the Souls. And I think we're doing new things. And but we're, you know, I think it's important to be studied in it, so that you can have a meaningful dialogue with the work previous as you move forward. And not to say that you can't like ape it and invent at the same time. That happens too, but I'm a nerd, so I like the studied approach.
Yeah, I like that. And for the listeners that haven't checked out the Aaron interviews, please go back and listen to them. He's just a fantastic musician and a good
Yeah,
a
you
good,
had
good.
Okonski, not bad company you keep on here.
Oh yeah, Okonski too. Yeah, he's such a funny guy, and I love. And go pick up the new record. I forget what it's called. Entrance Music, I think is what
Yeah,
it's called. Fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, he was a real gent to us when we were in Asheville. Made it a point to come over and say hello and all that.
Oh, I would expect nothing less from him. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm glad that I'm able to add you to the list too now, Jacob. So thank you for being here.
yeah, my
Um,
pleasure.
Going back, you mentioned two vital performances that you've seen. What is another one to round out that top three for you in terms of live performances?
Oh, I didn't even mention the second one, but so one of them was Sharon Jones, which actually was the first time I got to see Gabe Roth on stage as well, which was really cool because huge
Oh
fan of
yeah,
his. Um, and also uh, Toots and the Maytals of all people, uh, because I mean that was mind blowing. That was a different level of performer. That was like I was at the uh, looking for the words here, the Fool in Love Fest, which was such a, for lack of better terms, brilliant fuckery. That was uh, three quarters planned out. It's an astonishing thing they did. Uh, Also an astonishing thing that they thought that they could throw a festival in August in Los Angeles in a parking lot.
yeah. What
That's
was
as
the
much shade
where?
as I could possibly throw. That was so cool what they did.
Yeah, what where was that held, by the way? What parking lot was that in?
That was at the SoFi Stadium parking lot,
Oh, okay,
and it was a
okay.
bajillion degrees, and there wasn't much shade, and it was a lot of people. It was hundreds of thousands of people, and because we had played on that same stage, and we share management with the Souls, with a wonderful guy named Alex Cadban, who's a legend. Another story about him for a moment. We were outside stage for Smokey. And that was mind blowing in the same way that Toots and the Maytals was. It's just there's people who just they are the premiere of entertainment. They like he just goes on stage and it's entirely captivating. And I love Toots and the Maytals. So getting to see that show, it was amazing actually because there was so much weed smoke in the air that it was sort of like there was a thin bubble of oxygen, and then if you were like too tall above it, you just get high, and if you were too far below it, you couldn't breathe because the room was so hot and packed. People were passing out left and right. It was wild. Uh, and yeah, that's another music that's very heart driven and very it's you know good old like Trojan and Studio One stuff is all that'll hit you. That's a four quadrant. That's a four quadrant music.
Four
That's head,
quadrant.
heart, hips, and feet.
That's amazing. Those are some good top threes there. I
Yeah.
like it.
Well, that was top two, right?
Smokey, Sharon,
Oh yes,
and
yeah. We'll put Smokey on the top. On the top.
okay.
Also,
Or if there's
like
a runner up, please let me know.
no,
Yeah.
no. I think I'll put that up there. I also like Sorry Mom was like peaking on mushrooms at that moment, uh, and so that was absolutely stellar.
That's a that's a good list there. Is there another one that comes to mind as well?
Uh, oh, okay. I got two more for you.
Please, please.
One was seeing Ramblin' Jack Elliott at the little
Okay.
guitar shop where Zach Sokolow and I met. Ramblin' Jack was a lodestar for me when I was younger, and I learned how to play the all his guitar playing, all those great flat picking licks, and I learned how to finger pick off his records. And also shout out to Jeff Moldor from the Jim Kweskin Jug Band because he was my one of my guitar mentors, and Pete Steinberg at McCabe's as well, just to name drop as hard as I can.
Good, good.
It would might mean something too. But yeah, Ramblin' Jack would meant a lot to me. I cried as a 15-year-old boy wearing a Harry Smith Archives shirt. And the way that McCabe's is set up, the green room is in an upstairs area, and you shouldn't go up there. But especially because it was like Ramblin' Jack, and there were so many like, it's an LA show for him, so everybody's going upstairs. I kind of like, I think people saw me with tears in my eyes, and they were just like, "All right, kid, go say hi to him." So that was quite that made quite the impression. And then going back to Hal Wilner's shows, and there was a collection he did of the anthology of American folk music, bringing it back to the Harry Smith shirt. And to get to see that sort of insane variety, where you have Bill Frisell, Garth Hudson, and like half the Saturday Night Live band, because that's who Hal can call on a whim, all doing their interpretation of a Sacred Harp number, as a jazz tune. Like that's so hip. That's so what a brilliant out way to approach things, and that was really informative into being open-hearted to music, and seeing that you can really interpret things and still, with that, keep the feeling. Actually, oh no, I've lost his name, but the singer from Pere Ubu was there and did a couple songs of Uncle Dave Macon. And if you're familiar with Uncle Dave, he was a kind of uh, like jagged tooth banjo playing wild man who was sort of at the start of the Opry, and he's a real ham, and he really like he would do these banjo flips and real character, and there's something a little frightening about him too because of it, because it's a different era of entertainment. It's you have to it's just aggressive, and so to have this punk singer out there uh, with Van Dyke Parks. Like again, these are the things that Hal would do. Is he's got Van Dyke Parks and the singer Perubu like doing a song together. It was so cool, and it carried the feeling of this like cartoonish Americana of Van Dyke Parks, and I say that lovingly with not like a negative thing, but like in the positive of it. And the like we were saying, like punks become folk musicians at a certain point. And you have them coming together, that really informed me, because what it taught me was that there is essence, and you can get there any which way you want, but make sure you get there.
Hmm. Now, I know you went to Cal Arts for
Yes,
music, right? Did that have an impact on the way that you've gone about making music or the way that you feel about music at all? Has it had an impact moving forward?
it definitely solidified and reinforced the philosophies I'm espousing.
Okay.
Um, I think maybe one of the most meaningful parts of going to Cal Arts was getting to become close with guys like Ben Schwab,
Yeah.
and of course Nick Baker, who's our drummer, we weren't overly close in college, but we kind of always we've always dressed well, so there was a sort of a real mutual like, all right, yeah. And when it came time to get the band going, he gave me a call and we started working the Roosevelt like 5 nights a week.
Wow. And real quick, shout out to Ben, and please go listen to those interviews if you haven't already as well. Fantastic musician.
Yeah, I was just over. We have a long-standing joke of who owes who in and out. And last night he owed me in and out because I did a session for him, so I was just with him yesterday.
It's fair. It's fair.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's that's amazing there. So you had cross paths with Nicholas during your time in college.
yeah.
Now you were also in the band The Americans
Yeah.
for a bit, right?
Oh,
But
forever. Yeah.
yeah. Now did that happen? Did that start occurring after college, after years in college, or did it kind of happen within college and also outside of college as well?
With the Americans, that was with Patrick Ferris, who's my best friend growing up. There's pictures of us as like little kids playing together, but we reconnected when we were like 14, 15. And I think he's a year and a half older than me. So I think I was like 15, he was 16. But what mattered to us at that time was Tom Waits, Bob Dylan, and Jack White. And and old blues. We were just both obsessed with old blues. So there would literally be us sitting up all night, phone calls, listen to what I just figured out how to play. It was competitive. Um, and so we knew we always wanted to have a band together. And so after we graduated from high school, and I did 2 years of college in Santa Fe, New Mexico at St. John's. I'm not a philosopher or a mathematician, but I could do 2 years worth of it. So I switched over to music. And when I came back to California, Patrick had just about finished college. I think he might have had a year left or something like that. But he moved to LA and we started the Americans and got at that time Zach was in the 1921A, which was a local band with a guy named Christian Lee Hudson, who has gone on to do well for himself.
Yeah,
Great songwriter. Man, that guy can rap.
absolutely.
Yeah, he used to live at my house and like my mom even went to a PTA meeting for him once. He was family. Um, but we kind of sniped Zach from the 1921A at that point. And with my best friend from college, a kid named Cody Edison, who's a photographer and not a drummer, had drummed in a punk band in college. We basically slopped together a tour out of like just sheer what we called Dig America. So we just called places and we're like, hey, we can play 3 hours of rockabilly and maybe some originals. And so Cody went out with a homemade kit of a soup spoon hitting a railroad like makeup kit because we thought it sounded more like the old 50s recordings because again we were obsessed with making it sound authentically like the real thing. And what's fun about the rural and like kind of flash in the pan moment of like hillbilly and rockabilly is that you kind of have everybody throwing their hat in at the ring at the same time. You have guys who are old Western swing cats and have are expert musicians. And then you've got guys who like all bought matching guitars at Sears Roebuck like 6 months prior and it's all great for different reasons. And but we, if the drummer messes up, we'd have Cody learn the mess up and play that every night the same way to like try because we thought that was a really important ingredient to it. So yeah, so that was how the Americans started, and then Patrick turned into a like phenomenal songwriter, and we worked really, really, really hard on that band, and wrote a lot of music, put out 2 albums we're all really proud of, and toured like crazy. We were on the road nonstop, and it lovingly didn't ever come to that much, but it was a lifetime and an education for sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, did you go from the American straight to LOM? Was that the course for you?
With one side thing. I mean, mine is of course gigging in town and all that, all the little. But I was the tour manager, actually manager for a minute, bass player, merchie, and driver for the Kingston Trio.
Wow, that's
Uh,
awesome.
which was that was an education. And at the point I joined the group, it was the step. It was the like basically children of at this point. And they and the legal complications of that name are exhausting. But those guys were really good to me and kind of helped me get on my feet, basically. And I worked really hard as well, but yeah, it was quite a shift from like this wild and desperate hunt for authenticity into guys in matching striped shirts telling the same joke every night. The kind of highlight, low light of my professional career was in St. Cloud, Minnesota, in which we were playing. The room that we had tried to book had like double booked and given us the short end of that stick. So we were in a smaller, rundown theater with about 300 people in there. Room held about 500, so it didn't even feel that good. And we had a ventriloquist on tour with us. And I was wearing a seersucker suit, and I went out and I introduced the ventriloquist, and he like made a crack about me as I walked off stage, and I just thought, I'm in St. Paul, I mean I'm in St. Cloud, Minnesota, wearing a seersucker suit, getting belittled by a puppet before I
That's show
go.
business. That's a yeah.
And you know what? Like part of me that I really wanted to. I love medicine shows. I love the whole that whole part of the real like the idea of the like dinner and theater kind of style the whole moving troupe thing. I find a real romance in that. Less so now that I've done it so long, but I think that's what I was after.
Do you remember how that show went after getting up
Oh,
on stage?
after being humiliated by a puppet. I had to go back out and do Tom Sawyer, not the Rush song, but the Kingston Trio tune, excuse me, actually with him. And I remember resenting that performance. Uh, but
I wonder why. That's a very odd stance to take on that, but okay. That's amazing. And kind of taking a step back from that, when did you start honing in on bass? When did that start to become a staple for you?
yeah, I was about 18, and that's when I started to. Well, I've always been a good guitar player, and I've always written songs, and I've always been creative on my own. Uh, and for about 5 minutes of my life, I was about as good as Zach. And then that moment passed, but I've never been too far behind him. I mean, that's a joke. Like who can play like Zach Oklo and say anything half as meaningful. That's what makes his playing uh, so brilliant is that he's expressive and he actually says meaningful things when he plays. He doesn't, and if he's not, then he's not happy with it. Um, to answer your question, I had to keep up if I wanted to keep playing with Zach and Patrick, who's also a great guitar player from the Americans. I had to find a place, and so I moved over to bass. But that shift had happened to me before in high school bands as well. And then I was like, I want to play guitar and I'm going to sing, so I started my own bands. But the bass kept people like it when I play bass, generally speaking.
Hey, that's good. That's a
Yeah.
that's a good thing to hear. Uh, when you initially did that switch, did that start turning different gears in your mind, kind of taking a more guitar approach to bass? Or did you kind of start with a clean slate and say, I'm going to work my way up to where I was on guitar, but apply that to the bass?
I would say that I really didn't do myself any favors by trying to think of it like guitar.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I really just appreciated the bass on its own terms. Zach, also playing behind Zach has been really given me a lot of direction of how I play bass. Also playing upright.
Hmm.
Uh, I think of myself as sort of a better upright player than electric player. Um, I mean, technically I can do more and fly around faster on it, but I don't think like an electric bass player the same way that I do as an upright player.
Yeah. So is that, I mean, is that a big switch? Because you perform with both an upright and electric on stage. In that time of switching between the two, are you kind of changing your position just mentally? Like, okay, I know
Yeah,
what I'm going into and stepping away from it in that moment.
yeah, very much so. The upright bass affords me the opportunity to play these big, meaningful notes and not fill in spaces and weave around the melody and stuff. I'm really the harmonic structure, and I really enjoy that. It's also kind of a cheat because I get to hear Zach play more. I can focus more on what he's doing. Whereas if I'm moving around a bunch, it takes a little bit more preoccupation
Mm.
for me, which is like why I say I'm not as great on not as good a electric player as I am an upright player.
Ah,
Uh, my thoughts are big and slow.
I like him. I think you got some good ones there.
Thank
Uh,
you.
when did you initially pick up the upright? Was that kind of around the same time that you were just transitioning to the bass?
Yeah, pretty quickly. I always want, like I said, it was, well, so Bob Dylan's bass player, Tony Garnier, switches between the upright and the electric. And that
Ah,
was really, I just wanted to be like Tony. And also, um, with the interest in old time music, I wanted to be able to play with all the old time musicians that I was friends with. You know, everybody from like Frank Fairfield to Jerron Paxton and all those guys. Um, and so the only way I could do that, I couldn't show up with an electric bass, you know. And
yeah,
they appreciated the slap stuff because that shows up. I mean, it's a different, it's more snap than slap, but that gets into the nerdiness of it. But yeah, but it's also just like rockabilly has a lot more of like grab the string and then slap the neck to go like a taka ta taka ta ta kind of a thing.
hmm,
And old jazz is more like just snap the string really quickly, ta 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 ta.
right. When you hear a new song for the first time or new to you, do you tend to focus in on instrumentation first or lyrics first, or it could be both at certain times?
Um, it's definitely both. Um, I I mean, I know we're all musicians and we all listen to a lot of music. I feel like I listen to even I feel like even in the league of dare I say league of musicians I'm in, I listen to a lot of music. I really thirsted and constantly I, I you know the vinyl collection, the constant hunt and search. And it's also what am I looking for in the music? And that will determine a lot. You know, I love exotica music, and Nick and Zach find that stuff really corny. But I'm searching for things within that music that they're not interested in listening to at all. Um, and so Exotica is a great example. Like the lyrics are, you know, uh, you know, there's not often lyrics in it, but when there are, it's Ima Sumac making noises or singing maybe an old lullaby in Spanish from Peru or something. But um, with that stuff, I'm also fascinated by production. And I think that's what I like so much about the Exotica stuff is it's so grandiose and absurd to kind of have a mythical. It's like sort of the well-intentioned first version of world music. Uh, like they meant well. It may have come off a little tacky, but it's fascinating to me. I love hearing people explore these ideas. Sort of there's a poet, John Masefield, who was the poet laureate of England in the like late 19th, early 20th. I grew up with a bunch of his books in my house. I do love poetry, but I wouldn't know his work if it wasn't already on the shelf.
Right.
But he has a great collection called Sea Shanties and Other Ballads, I think. And I read that front to back and loved all the I love the romance around these dangerous times. The same thing with the how that happened in the West, where and then you start to have tropes that like aren't even true. Walking the gangplank probably never happened or happened like once. But like that is a fundamental note to that. In the same way that like in exotica music, because of Yuma Sumac, you have to have a soaring soprano. That like that is a like it's not the good shit until it's got that.
It's a crucial part of it.
Yeah.
Right. Were you being exposed to these sorts of different sounds when you were younger, or did you develop your taste mostly on your own, just kind of finding stuff that you enjoyed?
Um, a lot of it was digging on my own. I had the great fortune of having the friendship with Patrick Ferris from the Americans, and we really pushed each other into because you know every era has its own technology. So we were right in time for ripping CDs and sharing a hard drive, paired with the fact that a bunch of music from the 20s in England had become public domain. So all of a sudden you had like the document box sets and JSP and all these great collections of 78s that were now like the complete Blind Willie McTell, all four discs, which was actually 27 to 1940. And then you could actually get the other three discs from the mid 40s. Like it was an insane amount, and we just wanted to listen to all of it. We wanted to be to the point that we just started describing certain artists as academic. You just needed to listen to it because you needed to check it off the list. Um, so that was really important. And then having Hal Wilner again to point me into like, don't just become a moldy fig, don't turn into R. Crumb. You know, here's Rasan Roland Kirk. Let this melt your brain a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
Another artist who's aiming at the heart.
Are you actively looking for music that you have to really pay attention to be listening to, not just passively listening to it in the background? Is that
Yeah,
the kind of stuff that you're searching at sometimes, or you're
it
searching
is,
for?
it is definitely something I actively hunt. And when I'm making playlists for people, I have to be careful not to give them something that's too dense a sandwich.
Yeah.
Because Hal always said you got to give people their vegetables. They may not love it, but it's important to give that to them. But you don't like, you can eat like uh, I've been listening a bunch to Wings lately, which is not something I thought I would enjoy as much as I am. But I feel like it's first off was totally wrong, and I'm loving it, having such a good time. But it's not listening to The Future by Leonard Cohen. It's not Anthem. There's a crack in everything that's how to like it. And there's no line like that that melts my entire being. But it is like the most wonderful pastry shop I've ever been to. And much like a great pastry shop, everything in there is delicious. But if you eat too much of it at one time, you're going to get a stomach ache.
What is a perfect album for you? 10 out of 10 album, no skips on it.
Mm. Time Out of Mind, Bob Dylan has a special place in my heart. Um,
I think you mean
that might have been
Timothy
one that just
Chalamet, but that's fine. I understand who you're talking about. Yeah.
I actually really thought he did a good job of capturing the vibe of Dylan.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it's worth seeing as a film, but he does the thing well. And from what I know of like Team Bob, they're not mad at it.
All
So
right.
there you go. Um, you know, I feel like I should mention some of the God, well, no, the answer to this is the La Lome record. It's
Yes, of course. And everyone can stream it wherever they get their music, and that can be found through the website at
yeah,
lolom.com.
yeah. Um,
Besides that masterpiece.
oh, here's a funny one is from Crate Digging, Marty Robbins, The Drifter. I think it's a great Western
Mm,
record.
hmm.
It's corny, but if you don't mind the cowboy singing, that's a good one.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many great records. I feel like I'm drawing a blank, being put on the spot. Um,
I apologize,
that's
Jason.
a that's it's a great question. I love jazz music. Real passion for me. Trying to think if I got anything recently that I think is just unreal. Um, oh, if I put it on an Ahmad Jamal record, I'm never gonna touch it. I'm only gonna get up to flip it.
Mm,
Or who else has been really knocking me out? Oh, there's a record called Duke Plays Ellington that came out, I think, mid 50s. And I've just been flipping that record. I'll tell you, there's a modern band. Now you got me going. They're called the Sentimental Family Band. They're out of Austin, Texas, and they're a two-stepping band. And they are so good, and they're so good in ways that I think are substantial. Because, like I said, there's you can kind of go through the motions and ape the styles, and not write any new melodies and not have any new ideas to it. But they write genuinely beautiful melodies. They write the band is tight and good. The lyrics are solid, and they're a real dance band. Like I have a lot of respect for real dance bands. I think maybe just because that's how I came up, is like playing for dancers. But I think that that gives you a kind of grit and quality to your playing that, I mean, no judgment for those who go the more art route, but I think there's something to be said for being a part of the gigging economy in your hometown.
right. Um, was it Ian MacKay had something to say? It's like, why would you move away from build a scene where you are? Don't be just another person in New York or in Los Angeles or something to that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
effect.
He was that whole Discord thing when I was in high school. That was a big one for me. I loved it. It was like it was Minor Threat, Black Flag, all the little bands that were on Discord, SOA, and all and then it was like Woody Guthrie, Bob Dylan. It was folk music and punk music, and I'm Blind Willie McTell, a lot of Blind Willie McTell.
Do you find yourself being more inspired by music, like contemporary music of now, or do you find yourself going back and listening to these older tunes from other artists and such? Is that really kind of where you're getting the juice from to create your own stuff now? Or is it a little bit of both?
It's definitely both. I mean, there are ideas being explored in older musics that I feel like we in La Lome still have want to have a dialogue in. Um, we have a song we put out with Gabby Moreno called Alma Florecita, and it's a beautiful one, and we wrote it very much out of the old bolero style, and specifically. I mean, like the bass line I'm playing on there, and the feeling that I think we really accomplished is a feeling that we kind of cribbed from uh, the La Cubana Cuban Boys, who were a group in the from like 30s to I think finally called it a day in like the early 70s or something like that. Um, but they were a bunch of they were Cubans who moved to Paris and picked up a lot of the arrangement styles of European jazz bands. And so you get this really beautiful combination of like exquisite, gorgeous Cuban melodies and songwriting styles mixed with European arrangements. It's really a phenomenal combination. It's so cool. We actually used to cover one of their songs called "The Hindu," I think we even did a video of it at the Roosevelt during it was Christmas. And so if you look at the video, it's going around, you'll see the Christmas tree as the video's going around.
That's awesome. At the end of the day, regarding other people's music and to some extent your own, but more of it in the capacity of listening to music, are you looking for authenticity within whatever genre it is?
Yeah, and that's a complicated word, right? You know, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, going back to him, sounds authentic as it gets, but he's a, you know, kid from the Bronx who ran away from home and joined the carnival. And that's an authentic story. Which brings us back to this idea of you can come at it from any which way, but if you hit the essence, which I think is what I'm going to term authenticity, if you can genuinely convey the feeling because you stripped away all the fat and gotten right to the laser point of what you're saying. And that's always been the reason I enjoy Zach's playing so much is that he has such clarity in his musical vocabulary, I guess.
Yeah, right.
But I don't mean in terms of like degree of licks, just he can he can tell you how he feels when he plays. And he can tell you this is a song that makes you want to go home with somebody. This is a song that makes you feel the sorrow of missing your homeland, though you've never been there. Like he can do that, and great songs can do that, and great artists can do that. And to me, that's where the authenticity is because it's a personal thing. It's the artist being able to be honest and share that emotional honesty with the group. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Is it more impressive when these feelings are conveyed with the absence of lyrics and just through instrumentation?
I think that the absence of lyrics grants you um, space to explore emotions that are really hard to put words to, basically.
Hmm.
I think
You're
about
just
like
going off of feeling and not some a definition of a word,
right,
essentially.
there's a lot of for lack of better terms, je ne sais quoi. I think of like the Trois Journapedi, the Satipis, right? Like that is the sound of melancholy. And if you dig around deep enough in poetry, you'll find a poem that is melancholy. Kin to Sorrow by Edna St. Vincent Millay, who's like my all-time favorite girl. I am obsessed with Edna St. Vincent Millay. I love her. And so, but yeah, so like, yeah, like a poem like she wrote, like Kin to Sorrow, I think really speaks to melancholy, with a bit of humor, which the Junapadi does not have so much humor in it, but it like these are hard things to describe. We have a word for melancholy, but to give you the feeling of it,
Yeah.
that's Junapadi. And you know, I don't even still can't describe the what emotions I feel when listening to like Brahms' Fourth, but it's huge. They are magnificently large feelings. I think about with like comic books and how they're fighting for the universe, and you have guys like literally hurling planets at one another. That's what like orchestral music can speak to, or like feelings and matters that profound and that grand. And then so yes, I think that is what lyricless what instrumental music can lend itself to is the Plutonian world of feelings.
I like it. That's a
To those of you who are still listening to this podcast.
they're gonna love this one. I could already tell, Jacob. We're gonna
Oh
get
boy.
tens of views on this. All right, this is gonna be big. That's big around here. There's big numbers. Yeah, going back to LOM, uh, I know there's a number of covers that are out there. Is that what you guys started with, covering these songs?
So we started out as a lobby band in the Roosevelt Hotel, working 4 or 5 nights a week, 3 hours a night. And when I originally brought Zach in, it was Nick and I. Nick, it was Nick's idea initially, and I'm going to give him full credit on that. He called me in, and I started bringing in, and he started bringing in melodists. So we were working with the great Molly Miller for a minute, who's with Jason Mraz and a bunch of other great people. She's one of the great session players, and a bunch of piano players and all these different people, and we were trying like soul tunes and you know we all grew up with KRF 101, which was an oldie station, and we were doing jazz standards and country tunes and all this stuff. And then I said, let's bring Zach in. Zach doesn't play jazz necessarily. I mean, he can, but it's just not. Uh, he didn't go to school for it. He doesn't have that sort of academic background. But he blows everybody else away. Let's bring him in. And we started doing a lot of like KRF 101 songs and learning this whole repertoire. And because we had 3 hours to fill a night, we would start writing. And Zach and I were already writing in the Americans for years. And Zach's always been writing beautiful music ever since we were kids. I would kill to have his personal archive of all the cool stuff he's written. Um, and from there, we started, we two things happened. We would start writing in the 3 hours periods. And then one day, Nick got tired of bringing his entire drum kit up the staircase. So he just brought congas,
Yeah.
and we shifted really hard into doing boleros and son and stuff like that uh, because we didn't have a drum kit anymore. And then from that, Zach listens to Zach has I mean both Zach and Nick have an equally voracious appetite for music. Maybe not as expansive, but as devoted as mine. So Zach's listening to was listening to 103.1 Cumbias y Mas, and was started bringing in cumbias. Also because like and we started doing chicha because it's on guitar already. It made sense to try it out, and people reacted to that really strongly because it's sort of the one of the musics of Los Angeles. It's one of the like sounds that's everywhere. So we started to bring that in, and then we started writing on that, and out of that, the EP were that we made. Those were the songs that we were writing, jamming, just lots of like 3 hours, like I said, like 3 hours a day. So one of those hours would be running those four songs, just 15 minutes each, or playing one song, playing a cover and going into it. And that's always how that's usually how we've written is like, oh, I like those chord changes. And on a good day, doesn't happen every day, but on a good day, I can hear where Zach wants a melody to go because we're listening to the same things. We're in the same thought of like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it did those changes? And actually, someone like Ben Schwab has such a gift for chord changes. He can go to these unlikely places and really. I remember back at CalArts, I was the TA for a class. It was sort of a overglorified open mic. It was sort of like a critique based open mic. And he came in, and I just immediately pulled him aside, and I was like, "You come with me. I'm introducing you to these people. We're friends now. Good news." Because I was so impressed with the chords that he was using.
In regards to covers in general, do you like to keep it as close to the sound as possible when you're performing a cover, or do you like to implement some of your own style into a song that might not originally be there?
I couldn't imagine taking on a piece and not bringing something of ours to it, because I think that if you don't, it can end up sounding exactly like the original. But if it did that, it's because you brought the feeling that matched that.
Hmm.
Um, and we have our tones and our taste and our vibe, and like a lot of what we do is take like like we'll cover a Selena song, and like those are big 90s kind of corny tones, and we're doing a much more acoustic thing, so that brings a different vibe. But really what you want to do is carry the romantic optimism in that song. You know, or yeah, like we just covered I Will Always Love You. Uh, and I mean, what a phenomenal song that is. What a heavyweight. So when we decided to do that, it was Zach's love. I mean, Zach, we're all in love with Dolly Parton. Who couldn't be?
Right.
Uh, but Zach has had such a deep admiration for her for so long that when he approached it, he took it very, very seriously. And you know, he learns every inflection. I remember reading once that like Blake Mills went through and read. I learned a bunch of Nina Simone's inflections for his playing. And I thought that was amazing. And then I remember that like not to with like that's what Zach does every time. There's not a song he learns where he doesn't dig in to learn the brilliant well, what actually is the brilliance of it. I'm playing bass, so I just got a job to do.
Is it brilliance often found within the nuances of something that you might overlook within a song?
Not every time, but for example, we don't we do a little bit of it, but we love like Anatolian rock and a lot of like rural Turkish and also Eastern European. There's a bunch of guys up here in LA, the blasting company, the Petrovic blasting company who became the California Feet Warmers, and that whole crew of guys. Zach especially has learned so much from, and I've had the pleasure of working with him a bit and hanging out with him. But that music in particular you have to learn the difference between it sounding like Exotica uh, and the real thing is learning those small trills, the minutia of it, because that is where that's where the heart of it is, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it sounds like cheeky Exotica.
When it comes to s- stepping on the stage, what is going through your mind at that point, in that moment, right before you go up?
I hope my bass is in tune. Um, I try to I try not to think too much about it. Um, I find I don't get nervous unless there's more than 3,000 people out there. That's still like, and that number has
That's
kind of gone up over the years. It used to be 50 and then it became 100. And now, like, we're doing the Wiltern in June, which is really exciting. And so about
fantastic.
2,400. And that'll be, I imagine I'll feel a little flutter for that.
That's a big room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an exciting one and real honor one for because I grew up in Venice, so LA boy all the way through. Um, the main thing I can tell you is that before and after the show, I try to stay out of Nick and Zach's way because we all handle it very differently.
Hmm.
Um, I'm annoying to them, and I say that. Not exactly proud of it, but knowing it. So like after a show, what I want to do, I think it just comes from the time, the years spent on the road with the Americans and then the Kingston Trio. Um, I get
And
off stage and I want to go glad hand. I want to go shake people's hands. I want to go say hi and thank you and come down that way. I like to take the energy and let it go on outwardly. And those guys like to get off stage and take a moment of quiet because they gave it all they had. It also, I
hmm
think, comes back a little bit to because I'm playing bass, my job's a little different. And I don't have to like I'm expressive and I say things and musically, but I'm also the hype man for the band. But like Zach has to go out there and say something beautiful and creative. And so I think I like if I've written a song, I'm in a headspace. I don't want to talk to somebody. So I get that with him. And I get that with Nick too, because Nick has to invent solos. I think it's that they solo and I don't really. So they like to have their privacy.
if you were in that position of or a soloing position, do you think that you'd feel the same way, or that would change your dynamic or how you felt?
I really don't know. I've never been very good at it. So I've always kind of you know, over the years people throw them to me and I bluff my way through them. I wish I was great at it. I really it's a talent I wish I was much better at, but Sitting down and composing is my strength. And if I come out of that, then no, I'm a really social guy.
Has that mostly been the case of that feeling before and the feeling stepping off of the stage? Has that sort of been the same throughout the years of your performing?
Definitely the feeling afterwards. Um,
Do you expect that to change ever, or do you think that that's just solidified?
it has had to in the last year, very by the great fortunes we've had come our way, and our popularity. It's I There are rooms where I can't go out anymore. I was listening to your interview with Shannon, and she was saying she's getting a pin that says like "I love you, but I'm on vocal leave" or vocal rest, and I understand that intimately, and I feel bad for Zach. We've reached this kind of D level of celebrity where people recognize, like, will occasionally recognize us, especially if they're at our show and they're there to see us. They know what we look like, and because I'm not because I'm not Zach, I get the excitement of them being there and the excitement of recognizing me. And I'm also really good at diffusing that energy and like I'm good at community. This is one of my strengths. And Zach gets the kind of Beatlemania hysteria, not that level, like people aren't screaming in his face, but like they don't know what to do with themselves sometimes. And it saddens me because he's an excellent dude and he's a joy to talk to, but people come up and they're all like, ah, and they come up to me and they're like, "Hey man, great show." And I'm like, "I wish you could get that experience, but you get the full on." I'm sure Shannon gets the same because it's the front person thing. It's the blessing and the curse of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although
And
Zach doesn't like to be considered the front person, but like to think of it as the tip of the spear.
okay, that's fair. Is your position on stage usually the same? Are you usually to the right or to the left or whatever it may be, or does it switch all the time?
So it depends on the night. Nick looks at the stage and makes a call. Nick is the head of visuals for LOM. All the strong work we have on that is very much in his camp. But generally, I like to be beside the hi-hat,
Uh,
um, per per jazz tradition.
Gotta abide by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, were you surprised with the amount of success that the band had garnered in relatively short time there?
Yeah, I mean, it's uh, the short answer is yes. The long answer is I've known how good Zach is for a very long time, and I've always wanted the world to hear it. And so I'm really glad that everybody else is catching up.
It's about time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because he has beautiful things to say, and he should be listened to.
How did you feel about putting out that first album? What was that like for you? Was that huge?
The full length, that is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, being on Verve Records is sort of still something I pinch myself over. Um, how my mentor passed during COVID, unfortunately, but he's the guy I really wish I could show like, hey, I'm on Verve. Um, I think one of the first oh, you were asking records I could always play. The first Ella and Louis duet record on Verve. I That was a record that I just listened to on repeat when I was a kid, and I loved that. And Verve is just short for it's just shorthand for good taste, you know. Um,
I like that.
their catalog is so impressive, and the reasons behind the label are so cool. It was like Ella Fitzgerald's manager starting a label so that he could put out his live at the Philharmonic, which was one of the first interracial, like high end jazz shows, and the whole. So it was sort of a small bit of like radicalism within the system, and so I like that, and I kind of feel like that's kind of what Verve has always done, has been quietly radical. They were at the forefront of the bossa nova movement. They put out the Gets Gilberto record.
Ah,
Uh,
fantastic album.
it's so good. That's another perfect album. That's one that you can always play. That is a like if it couldn't even be played out. I mean, I've heard it too many times, but I can always put it on at a dinner party.
Yeah. What what is the album that you think you spent the most time with?
Album that I think I've spent the most time with. Oh God.
And I know I'm sorry here, but you know, now you got me going.
I mean, it's tough because like there's stuff that I'll return to after years and be like, oh God, I used to listen to this record every day. Like I said, right now I'm on a Wings kick, and it's for the entire month in Europe. I'd go out and I'd play cumbia, chicha, and soul, and then I'd put in my headphones and I'd have Paul McCartney again and again and again and again. I mean, Obladi, though it's an annoying song, "Love You, Paul," is a cumbia after all.
That's not that's not my I'll say that's not my favorite song.
I don't
I'll
think it
say
should be
that.
anybody's.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate you letting me
Yeah,
off
yeah,
the hook
you're
there
good
with
enough.
that.
I think Paul would even cop to that one. Like what has been a guiding light, I guess is a good way to look at it. Let me come back to you on that. Let me come back to that.
That's fine. I understand. Hey, I had to throw you a curveball there. Was the second release that live from is it Thalia? That's how
Oh,
you say
Talia
it.
Hall, it's coming out in April.
Thalia. Okay. So is that technically the second release?
That is technically the second release. It will Yes, that will be our second release.
Oh, that's
There's
awesome.
some boring stuff to get into with the deal, but that doesn't matter a bit. It is our second release. Couldn't be more excited about it. That show nearly killed me. Um, it was way bigger than anything we had done before, and Nick, with his vision, was like, we need to have this round stage, we need to have this red floor, we need to have this special lighting, and Nick that's where his work stops. And I love production, and so I took that all on, and I was making all, and I found the flooring, I found the staging. We had a bunch of great help from this wonderful person, Brand Moorhead at Talia Hall, who really helped us out with the production of that as well. But they after that show, I got pneumonia, full on like it was actually the moment that I knew that we had a really good manager because they sent a like thing in to get me scanned like in the hotel room. I had a full on thing. It was wild, but that show made me so sick because I was so stressed out of all the details. Uh,
Wow.
we recorded it all to tape, and we brought in Jacob Butler, who shot all of our videos. Um, Jacob's basically our the fourth member of LOM. He's so important to our sound and the way we look and all of it. Like he's our guy.
Yeah, did that kind of bring some more pressure onto it, knowing that it was going to be recorded to tape? Did all these kind of factors kind of make it feel like a different show?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and honestly, like listening back to it, I'm really proud of that show. But when we finished it, I thought we biffed it. It was such a relief to listen back to the tapes and be like, oh no, we played great, and the audience was amazing there. I'm really glad we captured that both on video and on audio because that was really magical to have. We never played it to 800 people on our own, and at that point, and so to get to have that moment of us kind of stepping into this bigger world and having everybody so excited, and it was just extraordinary.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so there will be a visual release to this as well further down
We
the
have to
line.
wait. Record store day. The rules are that you can't put anything out digitally until a 3 month window for stores to get the chance to get first dibs, basically.
Ah, okay.
Which is cool. I think that's great. I love. I mean, I got to figure out a way to hold on my records at this point, but I go support record stores everywhere I go.
Yeah,
Um, and
super
so
important.
June, we have big plans for June.
It's amazing that so many people really dig your stuff. That's awesome. That's so great.
I think it speaks to the that absurd authenticity term we were throwing around, and to the we have a cool aesthetic, and but most importantly, I think we make from listening to all this Wing stuff, I've got a lot of admiration for Paul's devotion to joy, and if you if you go deep enough into the Wing stuff, you'll find that he'll talk about his sorrow and his unhappiness, but he never lets. It almost seems that it is a form of resistance for him to not let sorrow be the thing that guides his music. And and it's inspiring to especially in the wild times we're in right now. I think seeking joy as a form of resistance is a real powerful tool as an artist.
That is really well said, Jacob. That's amazing. Thank you so much for being on here, sir. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you.
But before I let you go, I got some promo to do here. So,
Please.
LOM's music is streaming everywhere, wherever people get their music, that's where they could find you, right?
Yes, and make sure to check out our videos. We make very fun ones. They're always live. So it'll be different than the record and just as good.
Yeah. And all those video because most of them, if not all of them, are on YouTube, right?
Yes, and there's clips of all of them on Instagram as well.
Right on. So those the links to those videos on YouTube will be linked below, whatever you're listening to this on. Um, along with a link to the website, which is at lalome.com, which is where people can go buy the album,
Yeah, and it's the
uh,
LOM because we're the Los Angeles League of Musicians.
the Lalome.
Yeah.
Whatever that correct URL is, it's gonna be below. It'll bring you to some of the great posters you guys have up there too. It's awesome, and a couple of shirts. Whatever you need is there. So
Mhm.
be
And if
sure
you
to.
get our posters, we're donating the money to LVLA Fire stuff, of course.
Oh, awesome.
So
That's
so be sure to
amazing.
grab a poster.
Absolutely. And at _lalome on Instagram to keep up to date with news and shows and tours and all that good stuff. And do we have anything else to promote, Jacob, or is that it?
We will be back on the road in April.
Hey, all
We're going
right.
to start out March 30th over at Tree Fort in Boise, and then we're going to do the Midwest over to the East Coast.
Whoo, very nice.
So that'll be great.
That is gonna be really cool. I always hear good stuff about that festival,
Yeah,
Tree
Tree
Fort
Fort's a lot
Fest,
of fun. It's a special one because they give so much emphasis to smaller bands.
which is amazing.
Yeah,
That's yeah, incredible. Thank you for being on here. I'm gonna stop recording this and I'll talk to you in a minute, okay?
great. Thanks so much.